Trojan family, what's happening? What's good? Welcome to the USC LAFB show here on the LAFB network. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. Thank you, as always, for making this a part of your day. Of course, I was on here last night, jumped on trying to get ahead of the news. The transfer portal mayhem has already begun. When I jumped on, Brian Jackson, running back, had announced he's entering the portal. Wide receiver DJ Jordan announcing he hit the portal. Talk about those. So the video you can find, I'll put the link in the description below if you want to check that one out. Of course, right when I was done, then two more players are announced as entering the portal. Clearly, yesterday, for those that don't know, I think USC had probably their exit interviews, whether it was yesterday or over the weekend. Exit interviews, meetings with all the players, kind of really mapping out what the future of the program looks like, kind of roster spot analysis, player evaluation, all that's been going on since the final game against UCLA. But you can tell that, some tough conversations were to be had with some of these young players. And, I said yesterday, I'll say it again. There are certain instances where a player wants to try something new, get out. Absolutely. There's no harm in that. These players, or these young men, deserve to seek the opportunity they feel they're most afforded to. So there's certainly times when a player will be like, you know what, just didn't love my time at USC, or I just didn't get enough playing time, or I can get an NIL opportunity better somewhere else. And so that player will enter the portal. There are other instances where the team or the coaching staff or Chad Bowden and his staff will say, you know what, we are going to go in a different direction. Whether it be bringing someone else in from the portal, whether it be because of this massive recruiting class coming in. And so unfortunately, we would advise you to look for an opportunity elsewhere. So it goes kind of both ways. I think a lot of people automatically assume that when a player enters the portal, it's automatically their decision. Absolutely is sometimes, and rightfully so. Sometimes it's the program's decision now that we're in this kind of full free agency of college football. So right after last night's video, two more players, like I say, enter. So let's get into both of those. First one, I'll just say both of them off the top. Braylon Conley, cornerback. And this one was probably the biggest surprise so far. And it's true freshman EDGE Gus "the Bus" Cordova. So let's start with Conley. I really do think Conley did some good things this year. There were obviously some growing pains, but as a redshirt freshman, him and Marcellus Williams both kind of thrust into some tough spots with guys ahead of them getting injured and just all the kind of changes on defense in terms of depth and, rotations and whatnot. He had some really good reps out there. Also had some reps, not the best. I did think he could absolutely be a part of this program moving forward and potentially be kind of a rotational cornerback piece. Could he have developed into a true lockdown corner? Potentially. But I think what we saw this year is just based on kind of playing time, Marcellus Williams kind of beat him out in a way for that other kind of starting spot. Most games down the stretch, it was DeCarlos Nicholson and Marcellus Williams. We did see Conley still get in action. We saw him in the Iowa game to open. He started alongside Marcellus Williams. We saw him at some in the UCLA game come in sparingly. So no way, shape, or form saying this kid is a bad player. I think he has a bright future wherever he ends up, as all these players do. Want to do nothing but root these kids on and hope the best for them. But again, this one kind of came down to a bit of a numbers game. And when you look at the cornerback room, and let's just look cornerback specifically, DJ Harvey, he'll be gone out of eligibility. DeCarlos Nicholson, he will be gone out of eligibility. Prophet Brown, I assume, we haven't heard officially, but assume was able to get a medical red shirt, so he could potentially be back next year. Chasen Johnson is going to be back, and he will be, if everything goes back well from the injury, he will be one of the expected starters for sure in that back end. Then you got Marcellus Williams. So just on paper right now, Marcellus Williams, Chasen Johnson, and probably Prophet Brown would be your three starters, along with true freshman Alex Graham, who I know that he's a dog. He's going to be such a good player, and will look to seize that starting role regardless. So you have those four that are really your penciled in kind of starters on the back end for next year. And after that, Kevin Longstreet coming back most likely. Treston Castro, really high upside freshman from Upland. We'll see how he has developed. And then obviously RJ Sermons, the big 5-star who reclassified, joined the team in the summer. I think he could win the starting job next year. I think he's going to be a true elite lockdown corner. Just depends how quickly he can develop. So just in those numbers, right, you have the 4 slotted kind of starters with Longstreet, Castro, and Sermons all as high upside, specifically Castro and Sermons, very high upside redshirt freshmen. And then you have 5 incoming freshmen with the likes of Elbert Hill and Brandon Lockhart, who could push to start as freshmen as well. Peyton Dyer, I think, has a lot of talent, bigger kind of guy that can certainly, with that height, 6'1", play on the outside. Joshua Holland, who's done some great things at Bosco, and Jaden Crowder, who was in that phenomenal defense at Santa Margarita. So you essentially have, 7? You have 12 guys that are all going to be vying for those kind of 3 starting spots. And so I think it, again, just really came down to Conley, I think, is a good player. I just don't think they saw enough from him this year where they feel like he will be the starting guy over one of those other 12 that will be on the roster. So I think it was one of those, hey, you have a lot of talent, you're a good player, but I think you'll have more opportunity elsewhere. So I'm not in those meetings. So again, this is assumption. I don't like to assume things, but at this point, kind of talking transfer portal, that's all we can kind of go off of unless we get any true clarity. So wish nothing but the best to Conley. But I think this cornerback room is just loaded. That's really what it comes down to. Just a loaded room. And Marcellus Williams, they're both the same age, both redshirt freshmen, kind of took a little bit more of the role from him. And then you look at who's returning from injury and then all the young guys coming up. And I bet you they will go look for a potential true lockdown corner in the portal. Because as good as I think Conley could be, what we saw this year doesn't mean he can't change. Doesn't mean he can't develop more. But from what we saw is I don't know if he's that true lockdown guy going into next year. Again, he could become that, but if you can go get someone that has that pedigree that now you have with Johnson, Williams, Brown, Graham, and all the young bucks, you're probably going to look a little bit more confident on that back end to start the season and not have those growing pains 6-7 weeks into the year. So again, another numbers game. Hey, what's going on, LAFB family? Before we get to the show, got to tell you about my friends over at Sleeper, the #1 sports app right now, and not just for season-long fantasy. They have daily game updates. They have a live chat that you can chat with other users. Plus, my favorite part is the daily fantasy feature, which is similar to a pick'em. You just choose 2 or more players across any sport. Choose more or less in whatever sport that may be. So if it's football, more or less touchdowns. For Jaden Mayava, if it's Mekhi Lemon, more or less receptions. If you're looking at the Dodgers, more or less home runs for Shohei Ohtani. Really easy, and you can win real money. Right now, when you go and make your first deposit, make sure you use our promo code. You see it right there on the screen, USC LAFB. That's going to give you a matched deposit bonus up to $100. You put in $100 to play with, you're going to get $100 free on top of that. You can put in 10, you get 10 free. Also, right now, our friends are offering a $20 free entry for any new signups. If you go sign up today, you'll get both those offers. You get $20 right off the bat free to play with. Plus, use that promo code USCLAFB at sign up and you'll get that match bonus as well. Go to the App Store, Google Play, download the Sleeper app today, and tell them that the USC LAFB sent you. Now, let's get on to the show. All right. With Gus Cordova, this one was more of a surprise to me. Mainly, maybe it's just some of my bias. I thought this guy was one of the most underrated coming out of high school. I thought he was, should have absolutely been a 4-star. When you look at his high school production, 4-star player. I think he was incorrectly graded as a 3-star, and so I thought it was a steal for USC to get him. When you look at his body size, his build, his pass rush ability. 6'4", 270 as a freshman, coming from a great high school pedigree at Lake Travis out in Texas. And so I saw a really bright future with Cordova. So this one, I don't know, maybe this was more him deciding. maybe it just wasn't a fit. Maybe he wants to end up back in Texas. You never know with guys that are out of state. Like, he could probably go and sign with Texas Tech and do great things there, or Texas, or A&M, or Houston, or all those Texas schools. So we'll see if he ends up at one of those Texas schools, and maybe it was more of a homesick thing. But I do think there were two things that kind of led to this. Maybe it was a mutual thing. First, we'll start with the depth here as well. And when you look at just the defensive end room, in terms of kind of true starter quality, you're probably just losing Anthony Lucas. You would assume, well, barring anything crazy, Cam Crawford will be back. Braylon Shelby, I would assume, will come back another year as well. Still has another year of eligibility, get another year under his belt with Coach Henne, and kind of put a little bit more production on tape before going to the draft. So you would assume, again, all we have is assumption right now, Crawford and Shelby are your two starting edge guys going in the next year. And then you really just have Jaden Ramos. And so the depth on the roster is actually not all that massive. Now, they do play, different splits. Sometimes Jakeem Stewart can kind of split out wide, but we've also seen him at straight nose tackle, so I still consider him more of a tackle than an end. So, I mean, really going into this offseason, when you look at just the pure talent level, you're looking at Crawford, Shelby, and Ramos. So that's why this was so surprising of why Cordova ended up going in. Now, I think Ramos certainly surprised people with how quickly he's developed. I mean, I remember we got to see that open kind of scrimmage at the Collie during the fall camp that we weren't able to report on, but stuff probably came out, and I've maybe said it before, but Ramos was an absolute beast at that. I mean, he was unblockable going against the 2s and 3s. And the 2s and 3s have really good tackles at USC. They've got some good freshman tackles that are going to develop really well. And Ramos was just destroying. I think he finished with like 5 or 6 sacks in this scrimmage. So I think there's a combination of him maybe developing a little bit quicker than Cordova and maybe kind of surpassing him. Now, he's got to put on more weight. I mean, same height. Cordova's 270. Ramos was 220 coming into the year. So you really want to see him get to kind of that 240, 250 range as that edge. Don't think he can't still be a dominant player as a lighter frame, but going against these Big Ten tackles, you want to see a little bit more there in the weight. So I think maybe that could have been part of it. Ramos kind of taking over. I also think that Cordova didn't come, and this is kind of the unfortunate thing of college football now. He didn't come in the spring. He finished high school on a normal time, didn't get to campus until fall. And so he kind of just was a little bit behind in that regard. All those guys that show up in the spring and early and have spring practice, and they're in the summer workout program. And so he just kind of started off, a little bit behind everyone else, and maybe just didn't catch up as quick as either the team liked, or maybe just that he didn't like. So that could have been part of it as well, as he just maybe fell a little bit behind and couldn't overcome some of the other guys above him on the depth chart. But again, it's not a very deep depth chart right now. Now, that being said, when you look at the incoming class, you have specifically 4 edge players coming in this 26 class, headlined by Luke Wafel, who's going to get reps as a freshman, 100%. Samote Katawanga should get reps as well as a freshman. I think he's great. Sean Scott technically is going to be more of a backer, so I don't think so. Really 3 edges, and then Andrew Williams, who's a big body but more of a developmental piece. So numbers more there add up with the class, and then I think SC is probably going to have to go out and get a proven edge guy. As great as I think Cam Crawford and Braylon Shelby can both be, unfortunately just did not have the production we hoped for this year. Doesn't mean they're going anywhere. Doesn't mean they're not going to still continue to be great. But if you can bring in someone, that's kind of the theme, right? Like, they're not going to go hit the portal and grab 20 players. It might be 12 players, but all 12 need to be proven guys that can come in and bring you like, hey, we're bringing in a guy that can get us 7 sacks. Guaranteed. He's going to get us 7 sacks. Like, that's what they're going to be looking for, is bringing him a proven commodity like that to pair or to trio with Crawford and Shelby, and then essentially have, Ramos and this 2026 class as your kind of depth pieces after that. So I think Cordova is still fit in fine. I think there is not enough people in front of him to warrant him leaving based on that alone. So to me, it was more of a, maybe he or the team didn't feel like he was developing as quickly after showing up a little, later than everyone else, or maybe a situation where he wanted to get back to Texas and ultimately ends up at Texas Tech or A&M or Texas or one of those Texas schools. So we'll see how it plays out. We'll see if anything comes out after that. But that was certainly the one surprise so far, just mainly because I was so hyped on him. I just think he's such a good player, could be such a phenomenal edge rusher, and seeing him paired with Coach Henne and seeing how excited he was to be a Trojan. Like when he committed, he was so locked in, could not wait to get to campus. So, you just don't know how those things unfold throughout the season and whatnot. So best of luck to him. I really do think he's going to be a really good player wherever he ends up. Hopefully it's not at one of a rival school. Hopefully it doesn't go to Oregon or UCLA or even just some other Big Ten school that USC has to play. I hope he ends up back in Texas so it doesn't look like a bad decision on any of that regards. But I hope him nothing but the best, and, still always a Trojan, even though he was here for just one season. So that's it so far. Those two guys, or those four total, are the four that have announced they are going to enter the portal. There will certainly be more. So do not panic. Do not be shocked. Now, if it's a big time starter enters, that's going to be really interesting that we'll dive into. I haven't heard anything and don't anticipate that happening, but there will undoubtedly be more players that enter the portal. Just that's the way college football is. It's not a USC thing. That's a big program, roster building thing. And remember, Chad Bowden and his staff were not here during the first portal cycle last year. So they have different philosophies in how they want to build a roster, how they're going to do things. And so there's going to be a shift in focus on how they build the roster moving forward. So there could be some players from previous, don't even want to call them regimes, but from before they got here, that they'll look to say, hey, we're moving a different direction, bringing in a different style, different type of player, and we'll go from there. So don't be shocked, but hey, I got you covered for all that. We'll break it all down every time something happens. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button here at the USC LAFB channel. The growth has been incredible, guys. I could not be more appreciative. I've having so much fun covering this team, and that's mostly, or really all, because of you, our listeners and viewers, and I just am so appreciative. So keep it right here for all your recruiting, transfer portal, everything needs. I am going to start sprinkling in some basketball coverage. Men's and women's. Men's team cracked the top 25. Must bus moving. Ranked 24th in the nation after that Maui Invitational victory. So I think there's some excitement about basketball. So I'm going to sprinkle in some basketball coverage here and there. We'll obviously keep it separate, so it'll be different videos you can check out. But make sure to be on the lookout for that, and hopefully let me know how I do it. It'll be my first time covering USC basketball, so we'll see how it goes. So expect maybe some growing pains, but I think we'll have some fun doing it. So make sure to check out our message board over on LAFBnetwork.com. All the intel there. I'm building different community pages, group pages. It kind of looks like a social media platform, if you will, a place for us to engage, direct message, build group posts, and obviously the forum will have conversation and intel there. So LAFBnetwork.com, go check out the forums there, and and become a member here. Help us out a ton. We appreciate it. Helps us grow financially as well. But at very minimum, just subscribe to help us keep this show rolling on. Thank you, family. And as always, fight on.